Folks, I'm L.A. Little and this is your daily TA wrap. Well, we take a look at these markets. We do it each day from a different perspective, the neoclassical one, asking ourselves what happened today and what might it tell us about the coming days. I do this show 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday, live at 9 o'clock Eastern Time here from the base of a reasonably cold day in the Rocky Mountains. Well, folks, it was an interesting day, and if you have some questions, you can certainly reach me at these two ways. You can text me 303-912-9110 with any kind of questions, stocks you want me to look at, or you can email me, support@tatoday.com. As far as what happened today, it was really the Yellen and Draghi show on top of the Putin pledge. I mean, we had a mixture of everything that you could hope for to take these markets higher, yet we end with a lot of red. And that really doesn't tell the story, because intraday this was a huge move down, up, back down again. In the industrials, 32.5 higher, 16,550. They came within about 8 points of a new high, yet they can't get it. S&Ps, they come within something like 6 points of a new high, closed down 2.5, 1875.63. The composites, they were at 1889, so they missed it by, I guess, about 8 points. The composite, 16 lower, 4,051.5. The NDX, 6 lower, 35.40. The Russell was the loser, almost 1% again, 1097. Breaks a swing point low tonight. Looking at another one, looking at the weeklies now as well, down 10.5. Everything else was pretty much flat. Dollar got a decent bounce off the Euro news, and that really was the news today. That news being that Draghi, sometimes I wonder to myself, why does anyone believe what this guy says? I mean, he has been talking about doing something. In August, it will be 2 years. And he hasn't done a thing in 2 years, yet this market still believes him. He talks down the euro, and matter of fact, before we go to these, let's pop over and look at the euro. He talks down the euro today. The volume comes out of this, right, as it spikes back down. He basically said, hey, I'm going to have to do something in June, right? We're going to wait on the data, and in June we're ready to move. So the markets take that as a sign that he's going to QE into Europe. The CAC moves to new highs. The DAX also moving towards new highs. The FTSE, the same thing, right? That's the power of a central bank doing quantitative easing. Every one of them in Europe, across the board almost. But Draghi wasn't the only story today. Putin pledged earlier this morning that he would not do anything, and he asked the plebiscite this weekend to be delayed. Later it came out and said they weren't going to do that, but he got the markets rocking to start with. Then Yellen came on. She got the markets rocking more. And so we had a 3-staged punch today to try to take these markets to new high. Yet, if you look at them intraday, you can see what they did. They gapped this thing up. Let me put it back 2 days. They gapped this, actually they gapped down to start, but immediately shot it up to new highs, right? Rolls up the highs, and then it just bleeds all day long, all the way back, a little bounce at the end. Folks, these markets continue to fail at the highs time and time and time again. And that's got to tell you something. So here we go. Let's go through them all. So we have talked about ad infinitum this range trade. All right, and this range has been in effect for, 2.5 months. every time it comes up here, right? Every time it comes up to this level, each and every time they sell it over and over and over again. It's been hanging up here a week now. Still can't get over it and stay over it. Each one is a sell. Each one drives it back down. Today, you go over the highs. You do it with less volume. You close back underneath it again and again. It says you got to go back down the other way. Now, we have seen this before, and it hasn't, over the last 6-7 days here, hasn't translated into lower prices. This one looks to stick not because of this chart or because of the Dow chart, which is what we'll look at next, even though it also went over the highs, got within a whisker of the high. 16,631 was the high. We got to 16,622, so we missed it by roughly 9 points. So we get over the previous high, doing just slightly less volume, doing less volume than is at the highs, and we fell yet again, price and volume. The weak guys are where the action is, though. If we go over, and this is the one we really should look at the intraday, and if we put up the composite, you can see what kind of move it had. So I'll pull it in here, and I'll put it on like maybe 5 minutes or something, so it's not so. So here was yesterday's close. You gap down, you go straight up, right? The same sort of chart you saw, but look at your range. Folks, that's a 70 point range. Yeah, 70 point range. That's a big range in a day. So you get up here, you start bleeding, you go all the way back down and undercut yesterday's lows, undercut this morning's opening lows, close negative. That is an ugly finish. You can see it on the daily chart, what it looks like. And notice what it did. It went into the top of this bar. This is the 28th bar. That anchors the resistance zone along with this big bar over here and this high here. Goes into it, doesn't have the volume, actually has slightly less volume than yesterday, which makes it even more negative. So you go over yesterday, you back underneath it, you go into these, you have less volume than them. That's a failure on price, that's a failure on volume. It's going to go after this low tomorrow and potentially even deeper. And the more important thing is it closes inside the highs of the low bar. That low bar's got 24 on it. You did 24, so you're doing roughly the same volume coming back into it. You stick into it. That says, if this does go after this low tomorrow, you're going to get deep in this bar, which says it probably is going to go to the bottom of the bar. And then for the coup de grace, the Russell. Remember yesterday the Russell undercut both swing point lows. Gets underneath them both. We talked about it, was pushing volume as it went down there. What does it do today? It gets back up over it, tries to rise, gives it all back up, flips around, again, does less volume than yesterday, closes underneath the first of two swing point lows. The second one it's going after tomorrow. That low is 1095. We're at 1097. Should hit it tomorrow. If I pull over the IWM, the IWM is even closer. It got within a whisker of it, 108.66, 108.69, within 3 pennies of it, right? That's where they buy it again. But folks, I'm not sure I'd be buying here. These are ABCD structures down, right? These things want to go lower. They've set up ABCD structures. Now you got a break of a swing point. That wants to take you lower. You got the break of this swing point here, right? You got this one that's about to break. That was your B point. You're underneath it now. So you've got an ABCD down, a bearish ABCD structure. We can do the measurement real quick, but it's about 20 points deeper. And that one's already set up. And it's 20 points on the Russell. That one's already set up. Now what's worse is tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. And let me get the Russell up here just a second. On Friday, you get your weekly numbers. And so if we flip to the weekly, here again, it's double trouble, right? Because your weekly also is trying to break. That weekly low, the swing point low, hasn't been broken yet. That's a 1099.67. You close today underneath it, 1097. So you're 2 points under it. You don't have the volume quite yet on the weekly, 1.6, 1.3. You're going to have it by tomorrow. So more than likely, you're going to have the volume on the weekly, on the break, if it breaks underneath it and stays underneath it. That looks to be what it's trying to do. You got another swing point here, and when they cluster like this, folks, there are problems. And this one's clustered. You got one here, and you got another one right up underneath that one. When they start breaking on these time frames, on multiple time frames, that's when you can get the larger moves. So the Russell is setting up the larger move finally. It is time. Whether it happens tomorrow or maybe it saves it for another week, it looks like the Russell is finally going to do the break and get something larger started to the downside. So it's not the S&P and the Dow that's telling us anything. It's the small caps and the broad composite that are doing the talking right now. Now, if we go inside and we look inside the S&P, there's trouble there too. And so it's not just the small caps and the Russells. You're starting to see it elsewhere. And I was looking at the IYT. The IYT had, let me get it back to the daily here, had some good volume come in today as it was pushing up. So I went inside, as you probably saw there when I first started. Let me go grab this other chart. I went inside the day to see what that volume looked like, and you can see what happened. It all came out at the end of the day. Somebody dumped 50,000 shares, and this only does, about, what is it, what did it do today? Did 718 today. So 50,000 shares were dropped at the lows. That's somebody dumping. So that volume really isn't a volume test of the highs, but instead a reversal back down. You're going to see this thing try to trade down tomorrow. The more important ones were the kinds of failures that we saw. So if we go like to the semiconductors, and you're going to see this over and over again tonight if you walk through these. You go back up, you test the breakdown bar, right? And there's different breakdown bars. The semis, the breakdown bar was here on the 425 bar. I can't get that drawn in right, but it went up, it tested it. The volume was less, a lot less. Fails on price, fails on volume. That's coming back down to test these swing point lows and try to break them out, and it hasn't done that yet. So we got the same thing here, semis trying to break out multiple swing point lows. And if you look at it on the SMH or if you go to the broader SOX, it's the same story. You get over it, you're back under it, you fell on price, on volume, you're going to come down and test those lows again. XLE, which has been the savior for the S&P 500, gives it up today. Volume expands, finally starting to come back. Remember, yesterday this signaled an ABCD, a bullish ABCD structure to the north, right? Ain't going to be. Breaks it down. It's probably going to break out this low, right? And then this whole thing will be nullified when it does, or at least it will bring it back deeper and it won't nearly be what it was. And so it's, the story here is it comes off, volume expands. Now, it is coming back into an area of some support. We should see that. You can see these two big bars here. So that support zone is really this swing point high, right? That retest regen in there, and it really is about from here up. So I would think you'll find support somewhere in here. But that's another, as much as it was today, another 1.5% down. So the XLE isn't going to be supporting this market. And then you walk over to some of these weak, there's 4 of them that have been weak, that are still weak. One of them is the XLF. So if I go look at the XLF, comes back up, what does it do? Retest that breakdown bar, doesn't have the volume, fails again. Price and volume, once again, that's 3 times. You hit it enough times, maybe you can get over it, but if you fell every time, what does it matter? It's not getting over it. XLK, same story. I can just flip through each of these. You're going to see the same failure on the 410 bar here as you did on the XLF, You're going to see it on the XLV as well. It goes up, tries to test it, fails again. And then you go to the safety guys. Now these are interesting. So the safety guys fell at the highs on price and volume. This is the XLP. The XLU has already failed at the highs. It came off with volume right here. Comes off with volume on this bar. You test it, you get over it yesterday, but now you start to give it up. Volume expanding again as you're coming back. This is going to come test the bottom again. This is not a horrible situation, but this is a range trade that's going to set up. When you fell up there, you come off with volume, you're setting up a range trade. So range trade here, potentially a range trade in the XLP probably. So the drivers that have been driving this market, XLP, XLE, XLU, they're done. And what's happening? I don't see the XLV, I don't see the XLK, I don't see the XLF, I don't see the XLY. I don't see anybody coming in here to take up the slack. The semis aren't doing it, the transports aren't doing it. The only thing still holding up is the basic materials and the industrials. That's not going to hold this market up. The sector's also telling you this market wants to go down. And if we go over to the Ox markets, not much here. TLT comes back, so we'll see if this one finds support as it comes back to do actually the test in this little area right here. That's what it's testing. So it's testing into it tonight. Volume expands, but not enough. It looks to me like it probably will hold here. I would think this zone holds it and it pops back up again. Gold, silver, not really doing anything. I had 2 or 3 questions today in the trading room asking me about gold. Should gold go up if the market starts to cave in? Folks, I've seen it go both ways, so that's not an odds-on bet. So if you're gonna trade the market short, trade the market short. Don't try to trade gold long. A lot of times people make or attempt to make these deductions about, oh, well, if that's going to happen, then this is going to happen. Well, it may or may not. If you're trading, if you're trading corn, trade corn. Don't trade wheat against corn. Trade whatever it is you're trading. Anyway, because a lot of times those relationships you think are going to hold aren't going to hold. So just trade whatever it is that you think you need to be trading. So let's go back over what we got. Overseas, we got Europe excited. Now, I suspect they're going to fail up there at the highs and come back in some because Draghi still hasn't done anything. And, I guess today he talked closer. He's been talking about doing something for a long time. Now he says he's going to do it within a certain period of time. Now, that's dangerous when you start making those kind of comments because if you don't do something in June, right, then I would think that you lose all credibility. Maybe he's got a magic wand and he can, spit out some more words that people will believe. But, June to me looks like the time. So it's May, another month. Well, a lot can happen in a month. And a lot's already starting to happen here in our markets. If those European markets come in and our markets come in, those might be the ones to buy, given the June deadline now that Draghi's put on it, because we're tightening here, if anything, right? Or we're loosening less, I guess we could say it that way, right? Because we're still flooding these markets with liquidity, even at a lesser rate. Let's see what else. Let me go over because there was actually a couple other things on the world markets that were worth looking at. One was, okay, I looked at Europe. Oh, China. So China, they've been bleeding lower. Well, they got a little bounce today, but you've seen this before, a little bounce. This thing's trying to get all the way down here. So China looks like it's going to try to trade lower. Japan, I actually wrote an article today. If you're interested, Japan, the next crisis brewing, you can check that article out on the front page. Japan to me looks like, it's an inside day last night. Japan looks to me like it's going to try to test those lows and potentially break those lows out. Some of the stronger markets in Asia, one has been Indonesia. Indonesia looks like still a range. The one that's pushing back up now but looks to fail is Taipei, and that's chip country. They're coming back into the breakdown bar. I think it's going to be just like our story. They're going to fail at that breakdown bar. So elsewhere, overseas, you got strength in Europe, you got weakness in Asia, and you got weakness brewing here domestically. I think that's it. Let me go to your questions and see what you got for me here. No questions there. Okay, let me pop in and see if we got anything elsewhere. So, if I look at what happened today, we talked yesterday about getting a bounce. And we got the bounce, but it didn't last but a day. And that bounce, if you can't hold anything, right, then you can't expect follow through, right? Because we definitely aren't getting follow through here. So from that perspective, you have to be asking yourself, okay, is this really some sort of a turn? And when you look at the sectors and you look at the indexes and you look at the weak indexes, it definitely looks that way. Okay, no text message, and let me check my email. There's a question over here. Let's see what this one is. Okay, so this question looks like from a member, because I have indicated that, to members, I indicated today that this market's really starting to set up for something a little bit larger on the downside. Members asking me, where should you put your bets, right? If you look at the indexes, typically you want to trade the weaker one, and the weaker one is definitely the Russell. So you certainly don't want to, ignore the Russell. The issue now is, and it's always the issue. The issue is, does it break now? Does it blow this out and just keep going? Or does it bounce again, right? Because here, your volatility, right? The volatility on this is a lot higher than the volatility that you have elsewhere. Dow was up, for example, today, yet you traded down and closed down 1% almost here. So if you're on the right side of this, this one's going to move faster to the downside. But if it bounces first, the volatility can take this one up 1.5%, easy against you. They're moving that much right now. So, probably the best bet is you spread your bet. You take some of all of them if you want to bet short. You take some Dow shorts, you take some S&P shorts, you take some Q short, and you take this short. Take all the indexes. Or you just go into a sector that's failed. I mean, you've got multiple sectors. You got the XLF that failed. You got the XLK that failed. You've also got failures in the healthcare. So all of those are game. All of those can be shorted. Some of those have inverses. 2 of them do. I don't think there's an inverse on the healthcare. So there's plenty of opportunity if one wants to trade short in terms of instruments and markets to do it in. And so I would suggest, I think the safest bet is you spread your bets. You don't have to concentrate it in one. That's the way I would probably approach it. Let's take a look at a couple of the high flyers that have just been totally decimated. FireEye is one of them. This was one that caught my eye at some point back. I mean, this thing traded to, what is this? 97 bucks. It's at 27. And the reason I wanted to look at a few of these just to show the decimation. Now, this is not one that was on everybody's screen, but totally decimated, right? Here's another one. This is one I actually had and got beat up on. Lock. Same sector. A lot of the damage here is a result of what happened in FireEye. But then we can go to other places like Netflix. Big, broad companies. Look at the sell-offs here. I mean, if we go to the high, we go for 457, we hit a low of 300. 150 points off of 450. I don't need to tell you that's a large percentage. We're talking 30% or so, right? And this thing doesn't look done. You got volume at the lows. So it's probably going to come back there. How about Amazon? Here's a big name that nobody ever could take down. And they're finally taking this one to the cleaners. 383, just made a new low, actually made it on lighter volume. It actually set up a buy today, but it couldn't even get anything going today. So down to 286 from 383. So you lose 100 points, that's about 25%. And we can, I can even take a great name like Google. I mean, Google's come off. A high of 620 after the split, down to 518. That's 100 points. Not as damaging as the others, but still, it's not chicken feed. Technology has been hit over and over and over. Then you can walk over to things that have been strong, like railroads. And you got a stock like Union Pacific still trading up near the highs. Or you go to the oil sector, just even go to the OIH itself. It's been trading up at the highs. It came off today, but it's been trading at the highs. A hugely bifurcated market. Technology has been hugely hit. How about Tesla? Somebody asked me about Tesla recently. Let's see what it did. Oh yeah, this one got creamed. And we were talking about it today. This is a growth company that all of a sudden is doing 2% growth. That's a problem. This stock, let's look at it on a weekly. This stock is going to go deep. You're going to come into here first, 173. You're not that far away from it. Yeah, but I would be very surprised if you don't see Tesla trade back down to these lows before this is over, right? Given the earnings that came out today and what was said. So here's another one. This one's going from 260 to 130 probably. It's going to lose 50% of its value. Or how about what was the other one we looked at the other day? Twitter, TWTR. We were talking about 27. It was going to try to get to. Let's put this one on the daily and look at it. And 27 was the number. What did it get to? Just 29.5. Got a little bounce today. Still going to go down more. So you can see the kind of damage that's been done. Short story, these markets, the time's running out. They've been elongated. You've had, and I'm not talking about a crash. I'm just talking about a larger move to the downside. And an accelerated larger move to the downside. It's setting up. It's not just on the Russell. It's also elsewhere. If I pull up the IXIC, for example, and pull this one, you got swing point lows down here, 2 of them. And then if you go to the weekly, they're not that far away. So once you start cracking back down here, you're cracking them on 2 time frames. That leads to faster moves down. That's what's setting up. And it's not that far away. Maybe they save it for a little bit longer, but time is running out, folks. Hey, thanks for joining me. I have to leave it at that. Out of time. Have a great night. You tell a friend, tell 2. I'm LA. This is, and it was, your daily TA wrap. Have a great night and take care. I'll see you next time. Good night, folks.